Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. This is Shiza Ayaz Khilji from Department of Botany is going to teach a subject of environmental biology in the vein of science and technology, University of Education, Township, Lahore. So the topic which I am going to discuss today, the major is the sediment pollution, which is caused by various factors in the contents, including herbicides, fungicides, pesticides. So in lecture 12, we have discussed in detail about the introduction of herbicide, like what are the different control strategies in order to control the particular type of unwanted plants in the form of weeds. Now, in current lecture, we'll discuss about the different classes of herbicides, their action, their mode of action, and what is the negative impacts of these herbicides in our environment, society, including human beings, and what should be the control measures in order to control these herbicides in our atmosphere. So the herbicides can be divided into the two major types, pre-emergent and the post-emergent. As a list of the classes may include pre-emergent and the post-emergent that will have a direct contact on the grassy weeds and the broadleaf weeds, whereas pre-emergent basically consists of the mode of action of the herbicides, like selective as well as their non-selective mode of actions. So the post-emergent herbicides. No, it's a pre-emergent. Pre-emergent herbicides are those that kill a weed early in the spring season for the plants really begin to grow and weather turns to be the warm. That is, this means that the pre-emergence barrier will be created in the weeds prior to the seed germination. This means that they will not wait for the change of the season, and they were these types of the herbicides will kill the unwanted or undesired plant into the crop field early in the spring season before the start of the higher temperature like the summer season. And this type of pre-emergent herbicide is effective on the weeds like the crabgrass that annually sprout from the new seeds. Post-emergent herbicides. Once a plant has started to grow, it is time for us to apply a post-emergent herbicide. Like picture here, you can see. So these post-emergent herbicides usually need to be applied several times throughout the growing season. So a particular season is not required for that type of herbicide. They can be applied several times throughout the growing season. They need only a small sprouting of the plant is necessary in order to apply these post-emergent herbicides, and the Roundup is a very good example of these herbicides, post-emergent herbicides. So, advantages of the herbicides. Beside various disadvantages like overusing herbicide can drive the weed resistance because some of the plants will inevitably withstand the chemicals and they produce the offsprings that are similarly hardy. It's an evolutionary inevitability. Too much herbicide can also cause various environmental problems, although these vary depending upon the amount of the chemical that is given to the particular crop. So they may have direct effect on the weeds, like they kill unwanted plant that are very easy to use. They can also be used on closely planted crops where other methods cannot be used. So most of the time, one application of that herbicide is enough, whereas other methods have to be continuously used. They work faster, they can be removed quickly in the critical situations also, and they are relatively cheap, and most of the time they are cheaper than the manual weeding process. So how to control the weed? Particular time of application that work faster. Relatively, these are cheaper methods in order to use to control that particular kind of the weed in the agricultural field. How it affects the growth of the plant in a particular crop. Like they can destroy the plant bearing diseases, and they also help the crops grow by destroying the weed that causes harmful effect, which includes germination, competition by water, nutrients, light, sprays, interference of the weeds with the other crop growth by the release of the certain toxins. Then there will be a modification of the soil as well as air temperature, and by harboring the pests. So they can be safely used as the manual and mechanical removing of the weeds can also destroy the particular type of the crops. Beside the crop and the weed killer, there can also have many other advantages, like they are relatively safe on the lands which may erode, so they prevent soil eroding also. Type of non-selective herbicide can be effectively used to clear the fields where the houses and the roads can then be built later on. So there are various disadvantages of these herbicides, like they can be expensive, they build up in toxic level in the particular food chain by altering our food web, and they can also contaminate the environment by the supply of the water and many other nutrients to the particular atmosphere. They can kill the beneficial plant and also can have a direct action on the plant resistance. So, effect on the environment by means of these herbicides. Herbicides, they vary greatly in the chemical composition and in the degree of threat they pose to the environment. Many of the herbicides are highly persistent. It is widely recognized that the main reason accounting for residues of certain herbicides like simazine and other triazines in the ground and the surface water was widespread use of these herbicides at very high doses on the hard surfaces. So in the soil, water, temperature, all of these are the abiotic factor of our environment or the ecosystem. So first category is the soil. Some herbicides are considered to be as non-biodegradable, and they are also harmful for a longer period of the time. So their heavy dose of herbicides affect the microbial population of the soil, with herbicides targeting amino acid synthesis in both the plants and the microbe. There is possibility that nitrogen fixation is inhibited by the application of certain herbicides. Then water is another abiotic component of our environment. The improper use of pesticides and the herbicides may also cause the stormwater infiltration into the groundwater. So when these pesticides and herbicides contaminants dissolve in stormwater, they infiltrate the groundwater and then the surface water, such as the ponds, streams, rivers, and the lakes. These chemicals may also find their way into the soil and deeper underground water units that may creating the pollution problem of that area. Living organism is another important biotic component of our ecosystem or the environment. Mostly the herbicides are specifically plant poisons and they are not very toxic to the animals. However, By changing the vegetation of treated sites, herbicides use also changes the habitat of mostly birds, mammals, insects, and many other animals through changes in the nature of their habitat. For example, herbivores may eat the plant treated with herbicides, and in this way, the carnivores eat that herbivores. The toxic herbicide would be passed up the food chain, increasing in concentration each time, resulting in the diseases like cancer, and even deaths can also be feared. So they also affect the human beings, like coronary heart condition, lungs and kidney disorder, low blood pressure, muscle damage, weight loss, and various diseases of brain, stomach, lips cancer can also be developed by these negative effect of the herbicides. Like if you see a human being, there is a particular proportion of all these metals in of the glyphosate which is regularly detected in the human urine, and it is a case study which has the different findings in the USA and the Europe. For example, the US citizen, 85 out of 22 out of 85, they may become affected by having 18.8 parts per billion concentration of that glyphosate in their urine. So you can imagine how much is this concentration is increasing and creating the various diseases and causing the negative effect on the human beings. So if you see these both pictures, what's wrong with this picture? So you can easily tell that a person which is spraying the herbicide directly onto the vegetation is without any protective equipment or any precautionary measures. So this is the correct picture showing a personal protective equipment like full sleeves shirt along with the gloves. So in this way, the person that are spraying these herbicide directly into the lawns or the gardens are affected by a number of diseases. So they have also certain effects on the crop plants. For example, an important problem with broadcast application is that they are non-selective. They are toxic to a wide variety of the plant species and not just the weeds. If the herbicides are not used properly, the damage may be caused to the crop plants, especially if too large dose is used or if spraying occurs during a time when the crop species is sensitive to that herbicides. So unintended but economically important damage to the crop plant is sometimes can be seen as a consequence of the inappropriate use of that herbicides, as a result of which they damage the plant tissues. For example, the growth of the particular crop or the plant may be stunted. In terms, it will give reduction in the yield, and finally wilting and the death of the plant can be seen in case of crop plant by these negative effects of herbicides in an agricultural field. So they may have various effects on the aquatic organisms also, like glyphosate-based products are the leading post-emergent and are said to be systemic. And they mostly affect our marine species, particularly in the form of algae, protozoa, crustaceans, mollusks, fish, and many other amphibians. So herbicide affect the water badly by contaminating the groundwater and the surface water. And this contamination mostly occur directly due to the several factors like spills or leaks, improperly discarded herbicides container, rising equipment near the drainage using area. And this contamination can also be occurred due to the leaching and the surface runoff. So the spray drift and volatilization of the herbicides that transport the chemicals into the atmosphere during and after the application should be avoided. Potentially allowing herbicides to reach the surface water and groundwater by means of the precipitation procedures can also be avoided. So there are many commercially available herbicides that can cause serious illness or diseases in case of human being, like the commercially available atrazine can cause the diseases of cancers, birth defects, and disruption of endocrine hormone system in case of human beings. Another, which is called as samazine Dixil company, it caused the mammary gland cancers in the female rats, and these are actually the diseases of human beings, including animals also. Upchlor, that is the butachlor, 15% herbicide, causes a rare nasal turbinate cancer in case of animals. And the last one is the Agent Orange. It can cause the possible cause of the birth defects, cancer, and a host of many other health diseases and create the problem in case of human beings. So what should be the rules in order to use these different type and these different kind of herbicide? What should we follow in order to control these type of sediment pollution? Before their usage, we should purchase the right herbicide for the task. We should read all the folder labels that on the bottle, and we should follow all the instructions. Once we purchase, we should store. The next problem is the storage. So we should never store any herbicide in anything other than its original container. Like, we should not shift or transfer that chemical by means that is the herbicide itself from one container to another container. So it should be stored outside our residence, and it should be away from all the food materials. Handling, it should be well mixed in a ventilated area and proper during the spraying in the agriculture field or any other garden, lawn, park. We should wear a protective breathing mask, and a person spraying the herbicide in the field should use the rubber gloves and the rubber boots in order to avoid any direct contact of inhaling and breathing by these herbicides orders. Application. So we should well aware about the application of the herbicide at a proper time, how much quantity a particular crop or a particular plant is needed in the field, and it should not be mixed up with any other water sources, or various amendments cannot be prepared by the application of this herbicide. After we have applied into the field, what should we do? We should always dispose the empty containers that contain the chemical and change our clothing as soon as possible. So we should clean all the equipment soon after their usage. So this can also create the problem of contamination and spread many other diseases that will create the pollution in that area or the environment. So these are all the references which I have quoted in order to prepare this presentation. Thank you very much.